So Pastor John Anesike was on the eNCA and he was being interviewed concerning the Good Hope Center that they were in a bidding to buy. Now, there's been a lot of skepticism. You'll remember that I made the first episode and I made a second episode, particularly to the members, talking to people who had very funny views. It's almost us versus them mindset. If you remember that whole episode, they were very, very weird talking. They spoke as if people out there, they forgot basically in the whole video. This is what I'm emphasizing. They're forgetting to be salt. They're forgetting to be salt, ready to insult. You haven't seen anything, what not, and all that kind of stuff. That's not Christian talk. Okay? Even if people are against you, follow what the Bible says. The goal is to get people to sing Jesus. So if you saw that episode, that's what we did. We did the first one where we announced the subject matter and we made the episode updating on the members' way of talk, which was just very weird for me. But anyways, on this video I wanted to talk particularly about the interview and the kind of conversation in general that people have been having about the church bidding for this thing. Pastor John Anesike in a video. Now, I want to be very clear here. On this video, I'm not here to defend Pastor John Anesike. I have my differences with him, particularly doctrinally. There are things he believes I don't believe. Things that he believes I think are just not Bible. I don't know where he gets them. For instance, he teaches subject matters of Jesus not coming back. He teaches a lot of things that I don't agree with. But you know, with Pastor John Anesike, you can't put up a video. He takes videos down and all those kind of things. So that's that. But on this video, I want to speak particularly to the church. We must be careful of a certain language, of a certain tone that's coming from the world talking in this thing. So I want to play you the video and I'll be back just in a second right now.
And we're putting our first deposit, 15% deposit of the entire amount.
Which is how much?
It's about 50 million.
And the purchase price?
135 million.
The Good Hope Centre's very run down. It's going to need a lot of renovation, I would think.
Absolutely.
Which is probably going to be very expensive.
The municipality was very...
Feathers. We'll go back to that. So they are emphasizing on the subject matter of the development aspect of thing. And I think that's the first thing that people just sometimes don't think of. Of course, people sometimes get concerned about noise and church noise. But a lot of times with buildings like this, the noise is very, very low because of the proofing of the buildings. And you find that the church falls into the center. And so there's all these walls and stuff like that. So it might not be that noisy. Yes, you might have people going in and out and up and down, but it's in the CBD, so there's that. But there's also aspects that people just don't think about. Having a big space or a building like this renovated back to fit a city center, it's a good thing. There's a development aspect to it, and for it to be a church, that's a good thing. So sometimes people tend to turn away, and also, you know, I've heard things that I just don't understand. I've heard people like Maponga and people like Daddy Freeze make comments about why don't these churches, instead of building 100 million church, why not just build a factory? They're not businessmen. Okay, at least they're not supposed to be businessmen. A church is a church. How do you gather 100 to 300 people in a building? If you're building, you build a structure that's fitting. Sometimes these people that claim to be smart, the smarts are very funny sometimes, because you would think they would understand that people build buildings in order for them buildings to be inhabitable, and also it builds into the structure of the place. It fits the city center, it fits the state of the place where it develops, it brings development. But they talk so funny, some of these people. Some churches to occupy warehouses that are no longer in function because businesses are closing down, whatnot, and all that. That's all real estate that's been brought back into work. So sometimes when people think of church, they just think open businesses. No, it's a church space. It's an environment which is now being brought back into life. And that environment, if there was no more movement in that area, it becomes dangerous because of the rundown buildings. Now you have security. Now you have a building being kept well. The infrastructure improves, which is what they wanted to do with Mabone, right? Unfortunately, the development is not stretching further out. It has stopped in Mabone, so it kind of runs down. But it helps to have that development because it encourages develop further. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to highlight out of this. And so now they go into further details pertaining the subject matter of how much the development might be.
Be transparent about the condition of the property. In fact, one of the estimates that they made concerning the roof was about 40 million to fix, and we knew about that, and we're willing and ready to get all the entire property revamped. If everything works out, definitely we intend to probably put up to 50 to 60 million in revamping the entire property.
How did you find 200 million rand to buy, or at least put in a bid to purchase the Good Hope Centre?
Though we've not bought that yet. The auction is subject to confirmation. So the whole idea was if you're the winner of the bidding, you're anticipated to pay 15%, which we've done, 50 million. And then we sign all the documents which we've completed. After the confirmation from the council, then we have 30 days to pay.
How are you going to pay?
The Lord will provide. We have various ways. We are currently talking to lenders from the United States, which we are almost 95% completed to fund it. And as well as here, I've been talking with one of the biggest banks here in South Africa. I met with their loan department. They were in my office last week. They were excited to even give the full bond. I have about $4 to $5 million myself to put into the property. To put into the bid. I wasn't even asking for the full amount. I was actually probably looking for maybe 40 million, and we have the rest.
So now another thing again with this subject, this is the one that really made me want to make this video. People tend to have a very negative view about a church having money or money being mentioned pertaining church. Sometimes the church can afford to raise the money, right? And that money would come maybe from people. Now, if you find that the money is illegal, then that's a completely different topic. But the reason why I want us to be very careful with the way people are talking about this subject, because you see, this mindset continues to go. What will end up happening is your church one day will have issues with when you start raising money. This is why I did an interview with Leon. This is why I did an interview with Leon, so that we can tidy up the conversation about funding for a church and building for a church. Leon did explain they have a lot of business people that grew up in the church that he has raised within discipleship, and now they're in business, and those people can come back and easily raise 10, 15 million for them to fund their building project. We need to deal with this conversation of as if church can't raise funds, or you need to deal with that. There's something that my mentor once mentioned, and I was I never thought of it that way, when Jesus sent his disciples out into the mission, he said that the people who were out there were going to be the one that provided for them. He says, wherever someone gives you shelter, there you shall lay. You know, whoever calls you in, there you shall eat. So basically, the pastor comes with a mission and we stand behind that mission and we walk that path. And so we want to be very careful with this language that's anti-church having money. We want to be very careful with that. Okay? We want to be very careful with that language because it becomes popular, and after a while, of course it is the misuse of funds that we are against. We stand against those type of things. But we must be very clear and we must be very transparent about these things. There was different pastors that I approached when they were in their building process, because this was something that I wanted done before. There was a pastor that I asked thingy when they were building, I think about a year or two back. Same thing, because I wanted people to have this clarity, to clear this thinking, as if money being talked about in church, it's taboo. So we want to be careful about that. And also, you have to be very building costs, okay? Yeah, 100 million. They're probably going to spend upwards to about 200 million if they're going to spend about 40 million on the roof, right? That's a very costly space. The land that it sits on alone it's a very costly space. So at the end of the day, the most important point I wanted to raise here is this here. Be very careful of this uncomfortable state of your ears where money gets mentioned with church and you immediately go negative. Be very careful with that, because the church is not a business. It's not supposed to be functioning like one. It raises money either from the church members, or it goes, he says that they have some of the money, but then they're gonna go and we're looking for lenders for about 40 million. So the money that they're gonna use to fix the roof, basically. We want to be very careful with that language, which gets uncomfortable talking about money in church. It's something, it takes a while for some people. You're gonna really have to work on yourself, because I found that a lot of people are very hard-hearted pertaining money in church. As a matter of fact, they don't understand that it takes money to run church. Why do you think I closed down where I was? This is a ministry. You think it runs on what? Yeah, I have a life. I still have to. We'll still talk about that at a different times. Sometimes people just see ministry, do ministry, the Lord. Yeah, the Lord. But things must be paid. Bills must be paid. In what world do you live where bills are not paid? So this language of people being very uncomfortable with money and church, we need to be very careful with that. We need to be very careful with that. But anyways, I thought this was an important one for us to raise. We need church people to be educated about these things. That's why I did the episode with Leon. I had intended to do other episodes with other churches that were building and stuff like that, but those passed. I managed to get the one with Leon, and he kind of like laid out just the cost. He explained the sound, how much it costs just to install the kind of sound that they want, the seating, the chairs that they want, how much are they going to pay in chairs alone. So people are aware when we're building the structures with the kind of a setting we want, it has costs. You don't just get there, be comfortable. Ministry costs. And I've noticed a lot of Christians very ignorant of this. Very ignorant. That's why you will call my ministry phone and you won't find me. In case you thought, you have never thought about it. That's why you won't find me. You're going to find me how? I'm not a call center. I'm not a call center. Otherwise, I'll sit on the phone the whole day. Because it costs. I have to work. I have to do things in order for me to to bring you the content that you see. This pays for whatever it pays for. But on top of that, it's still ministry costs. This is a very important thingy, and that's why I wanted to raise it here. I'll see you guys on another episode. Other episodes will be down in the pinned comments. Have a lovely day.